This is for second year literature students. Today I'll be taking Ode to the West Wind by Shelley. Ode to the West Wind, published in 1820, is perhaps the greatest of all Shelley's lyrics. It is a lyric of great complexity. The natural pattern of leaf, cloud, wave, developed in the first three stanzas, anticipates the poet's identification with the unseen but deeply felt presence of the west wind. The individual merges with general, the poem reaches its climax in stanza 5. Be thou spirit fierce, my spirit I, be thou me, impetuous one. It, this lyric presents Shelley as the poet of nature, singer of endless sorrow, and the prophet. In the first three sections of the poem, it vividly shows its activities on land, in the sky, and in the sea. In the fourth section, the poet identifies himself with the west wind, which makes ground for a new revolution. He hopes to bring about a new social order with the help of the west wind. His verse sweeps along with the rush of the wind. Metaphor succeeds metaphor and simile after simile with a wild rapidity. The poem is an ode composed in the Italian verse form called terza rima. Each stanza is planned like a sonnet containing 14 lines. The lines are iambic pentameters. This poem is one of Shelley's greatest achievements and has a deep human and political interest. He composed this poem after he left England forever and had been refused the guardianship of his own children from the first wife. Moreover, his ambition to regenerate the society was not fulfilled. Naturally, he was feeling much depressed and had no peace of mind. This poem embodies his revolutionary and reformist zeal, his lofty idealism, and invincible optimism despite the crushing circumstance of his life. It is indisputably the greatest ode in English poetry. The west wind is the symbol of force and power. The poem embraces within its vast sweep the whole universe, the earth, the sky, and the ocean. Then, for a time, concentrating upon the poet's own personality, it reaches out to the whole mankind. So, the poem has a universal quality about it. The west wind being the symbol of force and power, the poet embraces within its vast sweep the whole universe. So he identifies himself with the west wind, and then from particular to he reaches out to the general, that just as west wind is full of force and full of power, in the same way he wants to bring about a change in the world, and therefore he asked the west wind to give him the same strength that it has. It that is why he says, "Be thou spirit fierce, my spirit I, be thou impetuous one." See, so he wants to capture the spirit of west wind so that he can bring about a change in the world which at that time was going through a bad state. The poem is a bit difficult one, and it has got difficult words and similes and metaphors full of figures of speech, and he has personified the west wind, and the poem is addressed to the west wind. First I'll read out these lines and then take up the difficult words and then explain the lines. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. So The poem is an address to the west wind. The repetition of the sound W is beautiful. You look, oh wild west wind. Repetition of the sound W. These words and the sound suggest movement of the west wind. Breath here means spirit. Breath of autumn's being means a precursor of autumn life or vitality of the autumn. Unseen presence means the power of the west wind can only be felt. It cannot be seen. The leaves dead leaves in the autumn season. Dead leaves here means dead leaves or dry leaves in the autumn season. Yellow and uh, its power pestilence. In the second stanza he says, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence is stricken multitudes, o thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed. So pestilence stricken multitude here means the dead and fallen leaves that resemble crowds of people struck by some epidemic disease. So they look pale, when people are struck with some kind of epidemic disease, they become pale. So the dead and fallen leaves in the autumn season have been compared to the crowds of people who have been struck with some kind of disease. Chariotist here means carries. Hectic. The winged seats, where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring the spring shall blow. So now I'll explain to you the meanings of the line. First stanza, O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanted fleeing. So these are the opening lines of the poem. The west wind is the symbol of might and power. It brings about revolution wherever it blows. These lines describe the effect of the west wind on the earth. It blows in the autumn season. West wind blows in the autumn season. It is the very life of autumn. The different operations of autumn are not possible without the west wind. Though it is not seen, yet its presence drives away the dead leaves. These dry leaves are of different colors. Some are yellow, some are black, some are red. They fall off in such large numbers that they appear to have been stricken by some disease. The poet describes the scattering of the dry leaves with the help of a beautiful simile. He says, like the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Just this is the simile. Just as magician drives away the ghost and the evil spirits, in the same way the dry leaves fly in the presence of the west wind. It the invisible power of the west wind is only visible in its effects, like the invisible power of the magician. It drives the west wind drives the dead leaves away. Ghost from an enchanter. Note the unreality of Shelley's imagery. This is an example of Shelley's practice of illustrating the familiar with the help of an unfamiliar experience. O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry wind, the winged seats where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow. He, says that the west wind scatters the winged seeds and drives them to their dark and cold beds under the earth. There, like dead bodies, the seeds lie in their graves, unable to move or rise till the spring season comes. The poet calls spring the sister of autumn and of the west wind. But while autumn is dull and gloomy, spring is marked by light breezes and blue skies. So the spring comes with its light breezes and blue skies. She blows her trumpet in order to, she here means spring has been personified. She blows her trumpet in order to awaken the sleeping earth. With the coming of spring, nature wakes to a new life. Hence, the poet imagines that the spring blows a trumpet in order to arouse the earth, just as a trumpet is blown to call the soldiers to duty. On hearing the calls of the trumpet, the seeds come out of their graves. The poet compares the spring to a shepherd, just as a shepherd takes his flock of sheep to the fields in order to graze them. Similarly, the spring drives the seeds out of the buds, in which they are shut into the open air. With the coming of spring, birds and flowers begin to bloom and feed in the air, just as sheep roam about and feed in the field. In a word, the spring will fill the valleys and hills with birds and flowers which have beautiful colors and sweet smells. So, you know, in the previous lectures, I had taken up Ode to Autumn by Keats. You can see the contrast, how, Keats has looked at autumn and how, Shelley has looked at uh, autumn season. Shelley has described autumn season as, as a symbol of decay, dryness, infertility, whereas Keats has taken up autumn season as full of fertility and joyfulness and liveliness. So I'll take up the remaining. It is a difficult poem. You read it at home, and with taking into mind the use of figures of speech, similes, metaphors, and personification, and also the difficult words, and how he has compared the familiar experiences with unfamiliar experiences. I will be taking up the next stanzas in the next lecture. Thank you.